We're back now with our panel. David Kennerly, after your work as a war reporter, you wound up being the White House photographer for Gerald Ford, and he actually sent you to Vietnam at one time. What was that about?
Well, right toward the end, President Ford sent General Wine to see if there was anything that could be done to stabilize the situation. I went with him. I took photos, but I brought all these pictures back to the president and showed them to him. The pictures made a profound impact on him. It went right, really, it just struck him that he had to keep the door open for Vietnamese. And one of the things that I did was I put these photographs of refugees and people dying up in the West Wing of the White House, where normally over the cheery party pictures and color and all that. At some point during the night, the first night they were up, somebody took them down because they were offended. And the president got so angry, he ordered that they be put back up on the wall. He said, "You've got to know what's going on over there." And that's the power of the photograph. And it really struck him. It made a big difference.
Peter, you were involved in the first Iraq War. How, as all of this has evolved, has the relationship between the military and the press been different?
My last reporting period was really most of the 2000s in Iraq, and I was embedded a few times. I signed an 8-page document that restricted basically everything except going to the toilet. And maybe that was in the fine print, but it meant that no photographs of any wounded or harmed American, not getting close to any sort of action. Any interview I would have with anyone in the military would have to be approved and supervised. In each of these embedding periods I had a sense that I wasn't sure what was going on. We have really what I feel is sort of increasingly draconian restraints on the press, and I think that's not good for the public.
Are you all struck by the parallels between Vietnam and what's going on now in Iraq? And I say this, you know, we went to Vietnam not to conquer territory, but to try to protect the South Vietnamese from a communist takeover. We went to Iraq not to conquer, but to kind of protect, and then we wind up fighting the war instead of helping those who were there fight the war. And then once we begin to draw down, we leave, we turn over the equipment, and the whole thing collapses.
Well, it seems to me, Bob, that in both cases we've misjudged the enemy. We misjudged the North Vietnamese. We were worried at the time about the dominoes falling in Southeast Asia, all those countries becoming communist. That might indeed have happened, but South Vietnam and North Vietnam were one country that had been fighting the Chinese for 1,000 years. And yet we thought the Chinese were going to take them over. We didn't understand. And I'm not sure we understand exactly what's going on today in the Middle East.
I think this is the most dangerous possible place to cover. I think it's more dangerous than Vietnam, because at least in Vietnam you had kind of a safe place to go back to for all intents and purposes in Saigon. But being an American or European correspondent in that area, you might as well put a big sign on it that says "Kidnap me or kill me." And it's really tough. There's no independent reporting coming out of there at all. I mean, they're picking up all sorts of ISIS propaganda and whatnot, but that's not how you want to get your facts.
People say, weren't you afraid in Vietnam? It was a war. And actually, we were very safe in Vietnam. We knew which highways were dangerous. We knew where not to go. There were no suicide bombers. We are in such a much more dangerous world in terms of reporting. I mean, those who have reported from Syria have taken such enormous risks to tell the story. And I think that's a tremendous shift.
Oh, indeed, it is a dangerous area, but we must realize that how do you measure the risk you take as a reporter for your news organization as against public interest in what you're covering. I mean, I had no doubt in Vietnam that when me and my colleagues, photographers, reporters, went out in the field, there was a real audience wanting to know what we were reporting.